Hi, I'm Scott. Welcome back to Canard Boulevard. A totally non-related video to canards, but this is something that I think is important enough that I thought I need to make a video about this. This is talking about the Steamboat Springs crash where an eclipse crashed into the side of a mountain on approach into Steamboat Springs, Colorado. All aboard the aircraft were killed when it hit the side of the mountain. I had my initial opinion as to probably what happened here, but I discovered something that's has to do with Garmin Avionics. I'm not sure if it's a misunderstanding on my part. I don't think it is, and I think it's a problem. Coming up. So Steamboat Springs, Colorado it's a tough airport to get into because the approach comes in from the south onto runway 32. You can see the approach plate here. You have a significant altitude hold at 9,100 feet that you hit well before you get anywhere near the runway environment, and that's the MDA. The reason for that is as the approach proceeds, you start out at 12,400 feet, you descend to 10,800 feet when you cross the final approach fix at MAC-V, and then you descend to the MDA of 9,100 feet at Woodchuck, but then you continue on at 9,100 feet for another 5.5 miles before you get to the runway environment. So you're sitting at MDA for 5 miles before you even get to the missed approach point. And the reason for that is because there is this big mountain right here in the way. If you continue descending down, you'll actually hit that mountain, which is apparently what happened in this instance. Garmin has an LNAV+V approach in the database for this approach, which means it's going to give you an advisory glide path. It's mathematically going to calculate a glide path from the final approach fix down to the runway. Technically, it's supposed to keep you above the various MDAs and the step downs, but it's advisory only, so it's still up to the pilot in command to monitor the approach as it proceeds to make sure that you do not go below any of those hard altitudes, especially the MDA. In this instance, and this is what I figured happened, is that if you couple to this glide path, or if you blindly follow this glide path without looking out the window, it will fly you directly into the side of that mountain. So I did a few tests with the Garmin Trainer, and I thought I would show you the results of those tests here. So you can see I've got a Garmin GN650 set up. I have a Garmin PFD with a chart on the side there and have synthetic vision. And you can see I've got the altitude set at 12,400 feet to match what we're seeing at Tilly. I have a setup at Tilly, and I do have a moving map on the left side. So we're going to follow that down to 10,800. If we have a look at the flight plan, I've actually recreated the flight plan of the approach. I haven't actually put the approach in. I've just put the waypoints for the approach in there. I'm going to put the altitude constraints in there so that it will actually show us a vertical track on the PFD, and that will allow us to see where we are in relation to the glide path that it is calculating in order to move between those. This is not the same as doing an approach with an advisory glide path. This is just me setting up the waypoints manually on the flight plan, and then I'm going to fly those in nav mode. And then that nav mode means that it's going to fly the lateral navigation, but I'm going to manage the actual altitudes manually. All right, so let's switch on nav mode, and we'll increase the speed and start flying. And once we start moving forward, I'm going to adjust the altitude to our first step. You're going to hear it click on vertical track, hopefully in a moment, because it realizes that we need to descend to 10,800 to hit the next waypoint at MAC-V. So we're going from Tilly to MAC-V right here as our speed comes up.
Vertical track.
There's the vertical track, and now you can see that we have a vertical track flashing in just to the right of the attitude indicator, and you can see that little V coming down, which is the vertical track indicator, telling us this is what we need to do in order to hit the altitude constraint that we have programmed into the flight plan. So you see we're moving forward, and as we get that little V comes down to the center there, I'm going to start descending down to 10,800 to hit that first constraint at MAC-V. All right, so we're coming up on MAC-V. You can see we are almost at 10,800, so it did the calculation, the VCalc, fairly well, and it is now turning left to do the next leg to Woodchuck. And if we have a look at Woodchuck, we can see that we are going to be going down to 9100, which is also our MDA. So we'll speed along here till we get to 9100 feet at Woodchuck. And once we get to Woodchuck, I'm going to do what we should do, which is nothing.
Minimums. Minimums.
That's because we're at minimum, so we are not going to descend below MDA. What we are going to do is watch our AGL, above ground level, as we approach that big scary mountain. You can see we're down to 1,380 feet, and as we get closer and closer, that descends till we get to 860 feet. We're clearing that mountaintop by, and now as we pass by, you can see it's going to start increasing. So that is what that MDA is there for. That's why we're sitting at 9,100 feet. So at this point, now we need to absolutely dive for the ground. We need about 2,000 feet, 1,500, 2,000 feet per minute descent in order to make the runway. I did attempt to make it here, and it only is going to go down. This trainer only goes down about 1,000 feet per minute. There's no way I'm going to make the runway. I end up about 1,000 feet above the runway threshold at the runway threshold. All right, we're going to repeat this, but this time we're going to let it descend below MDA. We're starting back at MAB key again, and as we're coming down, we're going to hit minimums at 9,100 feet, but at Woodchuck, but we're just going to continue descending.
Minimums. Minimums.
There's our minimums, and as you can see, we're descending below MDA, even though we should be sitting at 9,100, we're heading straight for that mountain.
Wire ahead. Terrain ahead. Terrain ahead.
So as we would expect, the Garmin system is telling us, hey, there's ground ahead.
Terrain ahead. Terrain ahead. Wire ahead. Terrain ahead. Pull up. Terrain ahead. Pull up. Terrain ahead. Pull up.
All right, so now we know that, hey, there's a mountain, dummy. We should probably not be descending into it. Let's try this again. This time, we're going to actually load the approach in as we normally would into the GTN. So we're going to select that LNAV+V approach. We're going to just use vectors, load that approach in. We're going to go right back to map key. Let's make that the active leg. And now you'll notice I have both nav and glide slope active on the autopilot. So I'm going to increase our speed. We're going to start moving through. And that means we're going to be flying a fully coupled approach. The autopilot's going to be following both lateral and vertical guidance from the GTN. You can see we have a glide path showing there. The purple diamond is showing centered. And we have a LNAV+V notification on the HSI. So we know we're using an LNAV with a advisory glide slope. And it is going to hold that glide slope, or the glide path rather, more or less right in the center as we descend down to Woodchuck. So I'm pretty sure this is what the Eclipse was doing on their ill-fated approach into Steamboat Springs. I think they were following this advisory glide path. And as we approach minimums here,
Minimums. Minimums.
you'll notice that the coupled approach is still descending. Now watch that AGL, because we're coming up on that mountain and the Garmin advisory glide path is sending us straight towards that mountain. We can see the airport just over the top of the mountain. So we actually have the airport in sight, but if it's at nighttime, we have a completely black mountain in the way that we are not going to be able to see. So even if we have good visibility and we can see the runway environment, what we can't see is that, hey, there's a big mountain that's going to intercept our flight path. And watch that AGL. You can see we're down to 960 feet. And as we get closer and closer to that mountain, it's going to descend as the Garmin system takes us directly into the side of this mountain. There's 300, 200, and down it comes. And right down to 0 and impact. So that's a little alarming that the terrain warning system doesn't go off, but should it? I mean, you're on an approach. You don't want it shouting at you terrain because you're about to land. So it makes sense that the terrain warning system would be inhibited when you are on approach. And looking at the Garmin manual, that's exactly what happens. You can see the minimum AGL values that it will give you before it gives you warnings for each of the different phases of flight. But if you look at the bottom here, it says on a final approach, all the alerts are inhibited when you are below 200 feet AGL within half a nautical mile of the approach runway, or below 125 feet AGL within 1 nautical mile of the runway threshold. And if we look at the map, Where that mountain is 3.5 statute miles from the runaway threshold. So I don't think that the TAWS, the terrain warning system, should have been inhibited at that altitude when they hit the side of that mountain. I think that the Garmin system in that plane should have been screaming at them, terrain, terrain, pull up, just like it did when I wasn't actually doing an approach. The fact that it was actually coupled and flying an approach at the time seems to inhibit all the terrain warning alerts once it's past the final approach fix. I haven't found any documentation in the Garmin manual, in either the pilot manual or the GTN 650 manual. I haven't found documentation that states that, but it seems to me that is the behavior. I would like to actually try it out in my plane to see if the real thing works that way, but the trainer definitely works that way, and the code in the trainer should be identical to what's in the airplane. I don't know if this is a failure on Garmin's part, or it's just undocumented, or if it's something that I'm actually missed. But if you have information on this, or if you've encountered this, or you have any thoughts on this, please leave them comments in the comments section below. If you do like this kind of video, like, subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out when you do that. All right, that's it. Thanks for watching.